He's a lovely gentleman, and like I said, you're going to enjoy him a lot. Please welcome Jesse Miles. Thank you. So it's been an interesting couple of months. I recently got a phone call from a North Dakota police officer that informed me that my mom was arrested for attempting to stab an officer whilst already in a police station. Now, while that might shock some of you, you don't have my mom. I was instantly in damage control mode. I was just like, all right, Rogie, how'd you make her stab you? He was very cooperative. He walked me through it. He was like, well, she had a knife. And I was like, oh, it's Tuesday. And she was threatening to kill herself. I was like, that's not going to happen. You're just not paying enough attention to her. That's on you. And then he goes, yeah, the officer tried to take the knife from him. I was like, there it is, you poor deluded bastard. That's where you mess up. Listen, what you do is you go in the back and get the Amy Grant Christmas CD. When we're at the Heaven on repeat, she's going to cry and make you cookies, and I hung up on her. I got a call back about 20 minutes later from a very pleased cop with a mouthful of chocolate chip being like, oh, your mom's the shit, we're letting her go in the morning. I know, she's a magical woman. Now, the reason this isn't shocking to me is because, like, my mom and drugs are kind of fans of each other, and I don't mean it in the way like, oh, I went home for the holidays and I smoked a joint with mom. No, you spend Thanksgiving in a facility surrounded by the forgotten burdens of everybody else's family. But it's your mom, so you have to be polite. You're just like, oh yeah, the sheets are whiter here. That's right, your roommate's track marks do look like Orion's belt. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some advantages to having a drug addict as a family member. I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, or months ago, I had to get a tooth removed because I'm terrible at eating adults. And anyone who's had to have dental surgery knows it sucks. It hurts a lot up until you have it. So I had a friend who was nice enough to lend me 3 Percocets, or as my mom called them, Happy Pills. Which isn't a joke. I worked with her at, ironically, a health club when I was about 17 or 18, and since I was in high school, any day I had an emotional day, she'd just be like, oh, here, have a Happy Pill, you'll feel better. I get to be in my 20s and I learned that happy and opiate are a synonym in my mom's mind. So I call her and I'm like, oh, I'm in a lot of pain. She's like, what do you have? I'm like, I have 3 Percocets, and she goes, perfect. Here's what you do. You take the first one orally, you know, like you're supposed to take medicine. With the second one, you want to crack that in half. It'll make it easier to grind up into a powder. You want to snort that son of a bitch, and that'll knock you out. Before you fall asleep, though, crack the other one in half and grind that up in case you wake up in pain. Drink it with milk, it helps it go down smoother. And don't switch nostrils like an amateur. I raised you better than that. Some families exchange crock-pot recipes. And by the way, I'm adopted. That was my salvation from having a fucked up child. Glad that worked out. But being adopted, I felt for my mom, because you have to edit your parenting style a little bit, because as a mom, you lose that end-all, be-all line. I brought you into this world and I can take you out of it. Well, you didn't, so you're just a child murderer. Let's go down that road. But she was an improviser. What she would say is, I will send you to a mean family that doesn't love you. And then sit me down and make me watch a Dateline NBC report on child abuse. And she would just shit talk from behind me and be like, see how mean that family is? And they have a vacancy now. Yeah, I was never abused, but I knew not to mess with my mother. And that was reinforced when I was about 16 years old. Now, at the time, my mom was dating like this Ron Perlman, Sons of Anarchy type bite. She had the same taste in men as a Motley Crue groupie, but one who would settle for the roadie that hung the lights. A bunch of winners. And I'm going through puberty, so I figured that guy's got to have some porn, so I went through my mom's bedroom. What happens when you go through mom's bedroom in high school? It happens to everyone, they find a vibrator. Unfortunately, I didn't get off that easy. That would have been lucky for me. What I found instead was a box underneath her bed that contained a foot-long red strap-on. That screwed up every Clifford book I ever read. And Ron Perlman lost a little bit of credibility that day. If you're a step-parent, yeah, make an attempt at disciplining a kid with that knowledge. Hey, why don't you clean your room? Hey, doesn't a tiny blonde woman fuck you in the ass? My room's fine. 16 was a big year. I also met my biological mom, my birth mother, and learned an important fact about myself, that I'm biracial. It turns out I'm half Irish and half black. And if my skin color confuses you and makes that a surprise, imagine how I felt. I'm sitting there, the car pulls up, woman gets out of the car, I'm like, oh my God, my mom's rich, she has a driver. No, there's no one else in the car. But, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of being biracial and looking like this, because it's in the reaction when I say it. Like, if the brown half is stronger and you're biracial, people are immediately interested. They're like, oh my God, you're mixed, that's fantastic. When I say I'm half black, people look at me in one of two ways. Like I'm lying, or I'm about to say something incredibly racist. I'm not. So I then fill them in on my backstory and spend like 10 minutes defending that I am who I say I am, only to find out what stereotypes they believe in, as they start picking apart what parts on me they identify as black. They're like, oh yeah, now that you say that, you do have a black nose. Like, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah, your bottom lip's a little puffy, and that wrinkle in the back of your head, that's totally a black thing. Dude, you're worse than I am. That I don't mind, like I kind of get it. But when they go into my personal life, that's when I really don't appreciate it. They're like, yeah, you have terrible credit. Your last girlfriend was pretty chunky. That has nothing to do with it. Like, listen, I grew up in New England. It gets really cold, and bigger girls are warmer. It's a survival tactic. But thankfully, being this complexion and having that background, I have an excellent pickup line I can say to any white girl at a bar. I can be like, excuse me, would you like to piss your father off without scaring the crap out of your roommates? All right, thank you very much, next.